I consider myself very lucky to have had a contract for distribution before the movie was done.
This is Truly Independent, a show that demystifies the indie film journey by documenting the process of releasing independent films in theaters. Each week, Garrett, Batty, and I, Daren Smith, will update you on our journey, bringing guests to share their insights into the process and answer your questions.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Truly Independent. I'm Garrett Batty, and with me is my co-host, Daren Smith. Daren, how are you?
Hey, so good. I have to ask you at the top of the show, have I worn my Invest in Indie Film shirt before?
That was going to be my first question for you, Daren. Did you get a new t-shirt?
I made a new t-shirt. I'm following after your footsteps, dude. There's a place called Cotton Bureau, and you can just design anything and put it up there, and then they will print it for you. So, yes, I bought my own shirts, but I also sold enough to where my shirts were essentially free. But yeah, I'm going to start wearing these. This is like my thing, Invest in Indie Film.
I like it.
I'm putting it on the show for those people watching on YouTube.
Can we get your shirt somewhere? Not that particular shirt, but the one just like it.
I actually, they're for sale. I'm not here to shill t-shirts to the audience, but if you want, I've had people in Walmart go, dude, I love your shirt. I was like, okay, let's put these on lots of filmmakers as soon as possible.
Well, link is going to be in the comments.
Very cool.
So where do we go? We just go to Craftsman Creative, or
I'll put it in the show notes for people.
Okay.
A long, crazy t-shirt.
Well, good. I won't delay any further. We have a guest this week, and I'm very, very excited to welcome Graham Northrup onto the show with us. Graham, how are you?
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thank you very much for joining. You are an out-of-state guest, so we appreciate you making time for the show. Daren, I was telling Daren that, Graham, you and I met in film school years and years ago.
Yeah.
What was that? Maybe 5-10 years ago?
Right. Just 5 years ago. It's interesting because I just kind of knew you tangentially because you were in the film department, but I was in the theater department. We were in the same building and we crossed paths and we had mutual friends, but yeah, we didn't really get to know each other until much later.
Crossed paths both at BYU and then at a film festival, probably 2.5 decades later.
Right.
Yeah, that's where Graham and I connected, was through the Zions Film Fest.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
It's just over the last 2 years or so that I think we've known each other, and you've come to some of our producer meetups and come to the festival this year. So it's been very cool getting to know you. I'm excited to have this chat because your story is very cool.
Yeah. Shout out to the networking aspect of film festivals, right? It does work. It does happen.
Yeah.
It really does. You're not the first guest we've had from a film festival. So way to support indie film. Graham, give us an overview of what we're going to talk about, because your story to me is very, very fascinating as an independent filmmaker.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting because when I started college, I started out as a film major. I started taking the classes and I knew I wanted to have a family. I got married in college. The more I learned about filmmaking, the more I realized there's no such thing as a career track in filmmaking. And so I got nervous. I was like, I want to do this, but I don't want to just go to Hollywood or LA and look for a job or look, whatever. So at that point in my life, I was like, you know what, I'm going to switch to theater, and in particular theater education. Professional theater is not much better than film as far as career paths go. But if theater education, I love teaching and all that stuff. So I became a theater educator, where at least I knew I'd have a year-to-year contract at a school and be able to support a family. So that's what I did. Did that for several years. Fast forward to 2021. Or 2020, when COVID hit, theater just became a nightmare. And also, I had a new boss that was not particularly friendly to our whole situation. So yeah, fast forward to 2020, during COVID, the circumstances were not very kind toward those practicing theater in public venues. And that was highly stressful. And then I had a boss that came in and didn't make things any easier for any of us. And I thought, this is probably a good time to hop off and go back to one of my first loves, film. No one can meet together to rehearse or watch or anything, but I can make films fairly independently. I resigned from my post at Theater Aspen, where I've been working for 11 years. Started making short films and then doing commercial work as well, video-wise.
What was your experience before just saying, hey, I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to leave my job. Had you been on sets or worked with cameras?
Since I resigned, or what do you...
Yeah, I guess that moment where you're deciding to resign and pursue film, were you just starting with a fresh, clean slate, or had you already been dabbling?
Well, I'd been dabbling throughout my career. I'd done some video work. I'd video the plays that I directed. So that's real basic stuff, right? But I was also a photographer. I've been a photographer for more than 20 years now. And obviously that kind of stuff translates a little into the camera department in terms of your settings and how to frame up and composition. But I knew that I needed a new education. I hadn't gone through film school. So I got onto a couple of different online programs. One was Full-Time Filmmaker, which is based out of Utah there, I believe. And then another one is called the Independent Film School. These are online programs, mentorship programs that help you, basically all the things you should have learned in film school, but didn't, that sort of a thing. Right. And took several of those courses and kind of got up to speed on the technical aspect of things. And then the artistic side, as far as film goes, and as it's differentiated from theater, because I'm a director. I have an MFA in directing from Baylor. Directing is my trade and training. That's what I am. That's what I do. But had to adjust for the camera in terms of both coaching the actors as well as camera, a whole different thing, because you don't have that in theater. So I did have to kind of put myself through a film school to feel competent enough to even attempt that. But with my background in photography and my artistic background in directing, I knew I could do it. It was something that I knew would come eventually with practice, repetition, and exposure to the right tools and people. So yes, it was nerve-wracking to leave my job of 11 years and go out completely on my own. Absolutely. It was terrifying. But what was going on previously was unsustainable. So I thought, might as well, get off and do it.
Might as well.
Yeah.
I'll be happy while I'm miserable.
Right? Yes.
So question for you, and then Daren, you can jump in anytime. You said, I knew I could do it. And I want to know what your goal or what your definition of do it was as far as film related. What does that mean?
Sure. I grew up in a small town, Lamar, Colorado, and then I moved to Littleton near Denver. There weren't a ton of opportunities for the things I wanted to do. I knew fairly early on that I wanted to direct shows. I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. And so even at BYU, I noticed I wasn't even going to get real serious opportunities to direct until at least my junior year. And even then it was like one act play and, that sort of thing. So I think it was my sophomore year. I'm like, well, I need to pull myself up by my bootstraps a little bit here. And so I noticed in the theater schedule where they put on those one acts by the juniors and seniors, there was a gap week early in the semester where it was dark. I went to my professors and said, can I come in and direct a show independently and put it in this slot? And they were like, sure. So I got people together. I directed a show, put it in that empty slot. And, I kind of had to make opportunities for myself to get further experience. And, having done that back in college, I knew that I could just do that again. And I'd built up enough of a network of friends and associates in the theater who I knew actors, costumers, people who did that sort of thing. So I thought it would be feasible to start creating short films on a very low budget or no budget and get the reps in on learning how to direct the camera, direct actors, learn storytelling, the beats, all that stuff as it applies to film and see how my theater skills translated into that domain. So that's what I did. I directed a short film coming after I left Theater Aspen. The budget was $150, and that was for snacks for the cast. And obviously I had some gear. I had my camera because I was a photographer. I had a camera that did video, so I used that. And
it sounds like you have a little bit of producer in you too, because you're seeing all the opportunities and you're putting together the crew and figuring out how to get resourceful. So that's definitely part of it. Like your ability to transition, you had to have some of that in there.
Absolutely. And of course, I owe a lot of that to theater because in addition to directing theater, I was also producing other shows in the education department with the shows that I wasn't directing. And I had, I essentially produced the shows I was directing too. So I had, as far as that.
So when you made that transition, the decision was like, I'm going to leave this career. I'm going to go and pursue this passion thing. And I mean, it's not like 3 years out of college. You're talking about decades later, right? Did you see it more as I'm going to go and produce movies, or was it more like I want to be hired as a director? I want to be hired as a writer. Where was your focus in that regard?
It's a good question. Eventually, I had two goals that I kind of stated out loud. And one was that I want to direct, right? And if I have to produce my own films in order to direct, then so be it. One of my goals is to write and direct, and maybe get another producer on board, write and direct 10 movies by the end of my career in film. The other goal was to have someone pay me at least $100,000 as a director for hire. At that point, if someone's paying me $100,000 to come direct their movie, I know that I've reached a certain level of respect and exposure in the industry. Oh, yeah, they trust my work enough to hire me at that rate on that big of a film. Those are my two goals, and they haven't changed much. They're just kind of benchmarks. I'm going to work towards those as best I can and see where the path takes me.
There's so much value. You always say, "Oh, I want to do it. I want to work in film or whatever it is." Oftentimes they don't realize, "Hey, we're doing it. We're doing what we set out to do." And
Yeah.
until there's a clear definition of a goal, I'd like to do this 10 times or $100,000 per film. Now there's a specific goal. Now we can keep working toward that benchmark. Otherwise, we just say, "Oh, I'm working in film. I did it."
Yeah.
The goal informs the strategy, right? So if you're saying my goal is 100K fee on a movie, that informs what kind of movies you say yes to, what kind of projects you pursue, what kind of network and collaborations and partnerships you need. There's so much clarity that comes from defining that outcome to then say, okay, now I've got a clearer path to start pursuing that.
Yeah. And, like the 20 or the 10 film thing, I've got, at least say 20 years of, real viable work left in my life. That breaks it down to one movie every 2 years that I'm writing, producing, directing. And directing for hire, obviously I can probably squeeze more in. But in that sense, it breaks it down into chunks, right? I got to at least average one movie every 2 years, which may be ambitious. A lot of directors spend 3 or more years on a film, but it just gives me a benchmark.
Sure. Okay, so you have done your shorts, and now you've just completed your first feature, right?
Yes.
One film out of the 10 is in the can. Is that correct in saying that?
Absolutely. At the time of this recording, I delivered to the distributor in 3 days.
This is
It's delivery week, and it's
What are
going to
you
be
doing on a podcast right now?
The reason I have time for this is because my colorist and my sound guy are still working on their stuff. Once they send it in, I have to scramble to make sure it all gets
Gotcha.
exported and
It's
all
like
that
we
stuff.
could have pushed a week, Graham. Like it's okay.
Graham, that's what happens. This is how it always happens.
Yep.
It's like, why
Grains of
sleep?
course.
We can do that next film.
So I feel like we skipped a beat there, though, because we went from you produced short films like 15 years ago, and then you just completed your feature. So let's back up. At what point in the process of transitioning careers was it like, I'm going to go and make a movie? And tell us about how this movie came together.
Sure. Yeah, it was a roundabout process. So when I left Theater Aspen, started pursuing film full time with all my energy, I knew I wanted to direct a feature, and so I wrote one called The Pass, which was a supernatural thriller. It's a ghost story, kind of same kind of vibes as A Quiet Place or Signs, but it's a ghost story. Real family oriented, but also lots of peril. I put my characters through a lot. I sent it to the line producer that I knew, and the budget came back at like $2.5 million. We roll a car off a cliff and explode it, burn down a cabin and all that stuff, special effects and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, this is my first feature. Do I really want to try to raise $2.5 million having never done anything like that before? My decision was no, I do not want to do that. I want to do something that's a little more lower hanging fruit so that I will have been around the block by the time I produce that bigger feature. So I thought, what the heck am I going to do that's more feasible than that? Because that script is just a guy wandering around in the woods for like 80% of the movie. But still, it came back at $2 million plus to shoot it. So, okay, what am I going to do? Where do I live? I started thinking about all the things I could leverage to increase production value, reduce costs, and make a movie that's marketable. So right out the gate, I have something that I can put forward and put out into the world and might actually get a return on investment. Having been to various film festivals and talking to various distributors, the one thing that kept coming back to me was, oh yeah, romantic comedies and Christmas rom-coms tend to do very well, at least in this current market. And so I thought, okay, well, I live near Aspen, Colorado. It looks amazing at Christmas time. And I know everyone in the area, actors, some crew people, locations, all that stuff I could leverage and come in at a very low cash out of pocket, but increase the production value. So it took me several months of drafts, but I wrote the movie An Aspen Christmas Conspiracy, which I tag as Christmas romantic comedy with a twist of mystery. And then I started reaching out to local actors or actors who had been local. My two leads ended up being former students of mine from Theater Aspen who are now working professionally in Chicago and New York. I said, hey guys, you want to come be in a feature film? Of course, they're like, yes. And all the supporting actors were local talent from the improv troupe and various theatrical groups and performing groups, people I'd known to do some on-camera work as well. I got my cast put together and started looking for locations. And fortunately, the mother of the lead actor, Lion Hamill, still lives locally. And she became our location scout. She's like, oh, I know some place where you could shoot this. Oh, I know some place where you could shoot this. So it was like, it just opened the floodgates, and we got to shoot in some really cool locations. And, the city worked with us. The county worked with us really well. One of the things we're trying to say while talking to these people is, hey, this is going to be a cultural community asset for decades to come. How about you hop in and help us make this? So wrote the film. I had a producing partner, Lori Clemens Meyer. I've been working with her for a couple of years on various other projects, got her on board, got a consulting producer on board, Ryan Honey, who had produced 3 features previously and was now working locally as the executive of a performing arts venue, but he had been around the block before, so I was invaluable in advising on that. So I just started putting it together and, started writing it, say, in 2024, around, like February 2024, kind of finished up the script around September of 24, and then started fundraising and doing all the pre-pro stuff. And we were shooting by January 13th of 2025.
Wow.
And now it's going to the distributor.
How are you delivering? You breezed over fundraising.
Yeah.
Is never the case.
Right.
It's the longest process, if that's the process you're in.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So, yeah, it was not the ideal situation. I ended up being in fundraising and pre-production at the same time, which is not ideal. Fundraising is like a full-time job, right? Unless you have someone dedicated to it, you as the director and the producer, that it's kind of hard to do both pre-production and fundraising at the same time, but we did it.
Graham, I listened to a podcast recently. They were interviewing the director of The Brutalist. And they said, actually it was a director's roundtable. And they were going around saying, what do you do like the day before your first day of shooting? He said, probably trying to close financing. So,
Right.
so I don't think you're alone in that effort.
Yeah, and you're never talking about the ideal, right? I mean, you're never experiencing the ideal. I think you talk about it in terms of this should happen, then this should happen, but it can be in these processes that you have to be flexible. You have to be ready to put on a different hat or change directions or whatever. So yeah, one of the things we did in terms of fundraising is we got a Fiscal sponsor. We went to From the Heart Productions on the advice of another filmmaker, Jade Gott. She said she'd used them before, so I applied. The film got accepted into their program, so I was able to raise money from donors who would then get a tax write-off for their donation, which is nice because as a independent filmmaker, I am not a nonprofit, so you can't write that off. Unless you lose money, then you can write that off, but you don't want to do that.
That's the biggest irony in the world. All independent filmmakers are nonprofit.
Yeah, exactly, right? So we were able to do both. We raised money through donations, and that actually opened us up some foundation grants as well, because some foundations cannot donate to for-profit filmmakers, only to nonprofits. We got like $30,000 in grants from various foundations, which was amazing. The other amount that we were raising, we went to investors for, and that's where you really have to refine your pitch. All the investors I got money from were people that I knew personally. They're investing in you, not necessarily the project, although I really had to be able to articulate what the project was and what the potential returns were, all the usual stuff you hear about in pitch class and talking to investors. But we were able to cobble together the financing for the film. We intentionally made it very low budget, which ended up being about 150 to 160 cash out of pocket. Of course, that doesn't account for a lot of my time that I just gave to the production.
Sure.
I think we were able to get it and then go the rest of the way into pre-production and production.
It's fantastic. Anytime you're talking about a $150,000 feature film, there is some sweat equity in the logistics of shooting for that many days, even if it's 10 days or less. You're still putting in a lot of sweat equity.
Yeah, and like I said, our craft service was almost 100% donated from people in the community bringing meals. Almost all of our locations were free because we knew the people. We had insurance, so we were able to tell them if we mess something up, it'll get paid for. But but otherwise, we're taking good care of it and all that stuff. I think the only thing we had to pay for in terms of a location was a public park that we rented for $200. So that was the extent. Oh, and we had one other location. We paid another $250. So $450 in location fees for the whole movie.
Yeah. How long did you shoot? How many days?
We shot for 18 days. Because it was my first feature, we decided to do that in 5-day weeks instead of 6-day weeks, just so we would have a couple of days of turnaround and
Covered,
getting
yeah.
stuff ready for the next week. I even heard some of the crew say, "Yeah, we'd rather do 6-day weeks and just get it done sooner." But we did 5-day weeks, so we had 2-day weekends to figure stuff out for the next week. And
Yeah. Man, that sounds incredible as far as just bootstrapping it, going full independent, running towards your goal, and then checking that box of like, okay, got my first feature now under my belt.
it was incredible. The people that came together to do this, that we got a really professional crew. Um, they were on top of things and super professional. Having bootstrapped it myself before and been wearing those multiple hats, camera operator, DP, sound, all that stuff. It was so nice to be able to hand stuff off to people who knew what they were doing and took pride in their work. I can't give enough praise to the crew that really stepped up and made it happen.
I think I often forget that as an independent filmmaker. 100% of the people who are in this business got into it because of the passion they have for storytelling and filmmaking, being a part of that crew or that story making process. If people are willing to come work and hang out and contribute their talents and sweat equity, that's a great thing. The reason that they are doing it because they're getting rewarded, being able to do
Yeah.
something they
And
love.
that's actually one thing I learned on the set too, is because sometimes I have different priorities, right? As the director, as the storyteller, sometimes I don't care what the lighting looks like. I just want the performances to be on point, and I want to get
Mm.
the story across. But the cinematographer, the DP, will be like, "Oh, let me futz with this. Let me change this just a little bit." And so I learned to be like, he's taking pride in his work so that we all have the best product that we can possibly have. So I had to check myself and be like, okay, let the DP do his work because he's taking pride in it. I want him to take the same pride in it that I'm taking in it, so the whole thing can be beautiful. And it was like that with all the department heads. Sometimes I had to go, okay, yes, let them be awesome at their work and just sit back and enjoy the awesomeness once it's all done.
Yeah. So Graham, tell us about you said you're in the middle of delivery and you have a distributor lined up, but the movie's not done yet. So you were overlapping those two at the same time, maybe as you were doing pre-production and financing at the same time. So talk to us a little bit about that process. Fundraising and distribution are the two hardest parts. Everybody's like, "Oh, we got production. That's the easy part." Financing and the distribution can often be the things that hang people up, and you can
Yeah.
have movies sitting on a shelf for 2 years waiting for distribution to come around. What was your process
Yeah.
as you approached distribution?
So I consider myself very lucky to have had a contract for distribution before the movie was done. Then again, I don't think it was 100% luck. I think it was, people talk about having calling card shorts. And of course, your pitch, right? People talk about the importance of your pitch and all that stuff. So when I took it to the distributor, I had a couple of short films that I was able to say, here's my work. You can see the quality I can perform at. And then here's the pitch for my next one. Fortunately, from seeing my work, talking with me, and hearing the pitch for this An Aspen Christmas Conspiracy, they were like, yeah, we trust you enough. We'll sign a letter of intent right now. I actually used that letter of intent to shop it around to investors. And I said, hey, investors, we've got a letter of intent from it's BMG Global, who we're with. And so we
Shout out
already
to
have
David Austin
distributions.
there.
What's that?
And just quick shout out to David Austin over at BMG Global. They are fantastic.
David Austin is awesome. I met him at Zion's Indie Film Fest in Utah. He had done a panel, and I had not I didn't see. I don't think I'd even started work on my feature yet. But after talking with him, he's one of the people who talked about how Christmas rom-coms do pretty well. So he's the one that got me thinking in that direction. But he was such a nice guy. He was so forthright, so honest about what the distribution side of things is and how it works. I was like, you know what? I'm going to pitch these guys. I want to see if I can get in the door with these guys. And I sent him some of my previous shorts. He enjoyed them. And then I pitched him on this project. I was taking that letter of intent around to investors. And then I went to the American film market in Vegas, which was last year. His company was there. I went and said hello. And I had a little one sheet on my project. I showed him the one sheet and he said, we'll just sign with you right now. Let's just do that. And that was in like November of 2024. So right in the middle of my fundraising and pre-pro process, he offered to sign me. Then I went into production that following January. And now we're delivering. It's possible to get distribution before you even make the movie, but you're going to have to convince the distributor that your project's going to be worth the time and money.
Which you did successfully through your shorts.
Yeah.
Sounds like, which is
Thank
amazing.
goodness.
Okay, so delivery week then. What's the takeaway? That dust hasn't even settled yet on delivering the film. Is there a moment where you step back and go, okay, let's do it again. I'm ready to do it again. Or are you saying, no, 10 films is a bad idea. How about one?
I heard someone say that every production you go through is film school. This was true of my first feature film, in addition to all the short films I'd done. Every time you go through that process, you realize something. You realize, oh, this could be so much better if XYZ, right? In my case, it's hiring the right people. It's getting the right people on board to fill certain niches that you no longer want to carry on your shoulders. It's like, oh, let them do that. That would be great. What excites me about doing my next film is that, knock on wood, it's going to be a slightly higher level, or at least I'll come into it with my eyes a little wider open and be able to address issues before they crop up. And it'll be an easier process, at least in terms of that. Again, it's never easy, but it could be easier to get through emotionally. If you're not Atlas holding up the world, or Sisyphus struggling up the hill with that boulder, you've got other people to share that burden. And hopefully a lot of that comes with sharing the vision. As I get more of these reps under my belt, my ability to communicate my vision becomes more enhanced, and hopefully will enable me to get more of the right people on board. So am I excited about doing 9 more films? Absolutely. Am I excited about potentially digressing and having to do more of it myself? Not exactly. I would like to have better people on board each time. I'm excited for my next one. In fact, I've already got a space opera script that I'm starting right now, and a couple of my short films I'd love to develop into longer form projects as well. So there's lots of directions I could go. Now it's just a matter of making that decision or seeing where the doors start opening.
Graham, you remind me of this saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
Like you highlighted, I want to summarize some of it because you're not in a big film town, right? You're not in Atlanta, you're not in LA, you're not in even Salt Lake City, Utah. You're in this kind of tiny town, a couple hours away from the biggest metropolis out there in Colorado. And yet, without infrastructure, without a huge community of filmmakers and everything there, you still managed to pull this together. And the thing that stood out in your summary was like, well, I got good people. And so I think that's one of my takeaways. The other is you saw yourself as the producer until you could hand off different responsibilities to other crew people.
Mm.
A lot of people get hung up, whether they're writers or actors or directors, and they're going, okay, well, I've written my script, so why aren't people calling or picking me? Because you are the producer and you're not producing right now. You're waiting. You've really highlighted the idea that if you have a project, if you want a career, if you want to make a movie, you can't wait for other people. You've got to be the one inviting people to the table to say, this is something that has legs and I've got some energy and momentum behind it. Do you want to come help? And then they go, yeah, I'll carry this part, or I'll push over here, or I'll make this wheel start spinning.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's actually from one of my mentorship programs, this lady named Elatir, one of her things she says is, the 2 things you need to make a movie, or at least fundamentally, are you need a producing partner, right? Somebody to help you in this process. And you need a date, a shoot date. Now you have parameters. You have a shoot date, you're working towards that, and then you have someone to help you get there. And like you said, it's who you go with, and then giving yourself a deadline, a goal, right, to get to that point. That's what I was operating under this whole time. I have to make this movie this year. It has to happen for my career goals. I was putting the pressure on myself, really. No one else was doing it to me. I did it myself, but then I got good people to go along with me, which made it possible.
Awesome.
Well, I mean, you've climbed a mountain, so that's great. And I can't wait to see the film and excited that you've done it. You've gone from concept to completion and delivery, and you've done it in a way that will enable you to do it again, which is fantastic.
That is the hope.
Good. Well,
What's the start date? What's the date for the next one?
Oh, right. So if I'm every 2 years, I got to be shooting in 2026, which gives me a year and a half at most to really get my ducks in a row. But I'm going to give myself a little grace if it doesn't happen, as long as it's in process or whatever. But yeah, I'm hoping to do more than that. A director for hire, or work on other people's projects, help them out in their journey. I'm very open to that, as I hope to be heavily involved going forward, even if it's not on my own projects.
Nice.
Okay, Graham, we see you at this year's Zion's Indie Film Fest. Will we see Aspen Christmas Conspiracy?
I hope so. If the Moors will take it, then I will gladly show it there and show it to all my Utah friends. I think
Good.
they'll appreciate it. I love, it's not having a theatrical distribution. It's going for a streaming distribution. So anytime I can actually get it in front of an audience, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Which you're doing December 3rd in Aspen. Is that right?
Correct. Our red carpet premiere will be in Aspen, Colorado at the Wheeler Opera House.
Nice.
And it's going to be awesome because 99% of the actors will be there in person and at least 50% of the crew. Some of them were from Detroit. So we'll see if we can get them out here. But yeah, it'll be a big party, which will be nice.
Cool.
So cool. Congrats, man.
Yeah.
Big accomplishment. That first domino, you don't know what's coming after that, but if you're setting yourself up for the next one, like, you're doing it, man. Congrats.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys. And I just personally thank you for taking a question from me. It's really great to have you guys who have been around the block and there to answer a few questions here and there. I greatly appreciated it.
Of course.
Well, it's worth what you paid for it. So happy to give out free advice.
Wait, you were charging him? I was doing it for free.
Missed opportunity.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Look forward to chatting with you again and hopefully at the festival. And I can't wait to see the film. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care.
Daren, what a fun conversation, man. It's so fun to see him describe that process that we've all been through.
Yeah, that was awesome. And like I said, I've known Graham since before he had this project kind of in the queue, before he started writing it and working on it. So I think that was 2 years ago at the Zions Film Fest, and we had Faith of Angels there is when I met him first. And that was right before he started working on this project. So to be able to know Graham and be, like he said, one of those people that he would just text every once in a while and be like, I got a question, and be able to give some feedback. I didn't realize that he had already gotten to this point. We talked in October and he was like, do you know anyone who wants to give me money for my project? I was like, I don't know, man. Like, that's why we're here. Talk to the people that are here. Like, but he pulled it off. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a couple of things that stood out was that, like, this kind of never say no type mentality. I'm going to jump in with both feet and do this. His ability to, get people excited again, everything from a distributor, going to talking to David Austin over at BMG and maintaining that relationship. It wasn't just, hey, what do you think? And we'll give you letter of intent and maybe we'll talk with you again. I mean, he kind of checked in with them, saw them at AFM or whatever it was, and maintained that relationship. And then even his cast, he says they were former students of mine. It's about the kind of building this network, building this audience, building this team, and because of that, he's able to build this film.
Yeah. I feel like texting Michelle right now, because she's the PR arm of the Moors and the Zions Film Fest. But I was actually thinking, like, I bet Zion's Indie Film Fest has a higher hit rate as far as like bringing a movie to that festival and finding a distributor than some of the major festivals out there. Like, I
A lot
wouldn't
of
be
festivals, yeah.
surprised if they're hitting 10 or 15 projects that are getting some sort of distribution from that festival, because they're really getting some sort of distribution from that festival, because distributors who work with these types of films, and we should put them together. And they've done a really good job connecting those two parties and having a bit of a market strategic about, hey, these are these types of films and these are from that festival, have distribution deals. You're just like, okay, well, that's kind of crazy.
I think that's a good consideration for when you're looking for festivals. There's thousands of festivals out there, and everyone's willing to take your fee to submit your film. But it might be valuable to start saying, what opportunities are there for me in this film, and aside from perhaps streaming it to a local audience of wherever the festival's taking place.
Yeah.
But actually meeting with a distributor, and yeah, Zion's Indie Fest certainly does that.
Yeah. Pretty
Great
amazing.
job. Michelle, that's a free endorsement right there.
There you go. Applications are open. Submit today. I don't know. Like, I don't know where they're at in the process, but it's every like February, and it's a great festival. We've gone the last 3 years. We've had films there, two festivals ago and 3 festivals ago. You and I had, that was like our first crossing was probably 12 or 13 years ago, in the short back when it was the LDS Film Festival, and we did the 24-hour film fest. And it was like, so look at where we are now.
The same place, going to the same festival.
Yep.
No,
So good.
yeah, no, it is a great, it's fun to see it grow into what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, what's new with you? Anything on the horizon? Anything good?
I resonate with what Graham was saying, whereas like if you have a date, it helps things move faster. And so I set a date to close the first 2 million of the film fund by the end of July, which is 4 days from now.
By the
So
time we're listening to
you
this,
know, by the time this is out, you should text me and say, "Did you do it?" And hopefully the answer is yes. I have a lot of meetings lined up this week. A lot of them with people who could write the kind of checks that I need for this first milestone, because it feels like, all right, it's been 6 months ish since, I guess 6 months since the official kickoff in January, end of January. It's like, that's enough time. I'm ready. Like, can we move this thing forward? And so I don't want to be talking about this 6 months from now. Like, yeah, I'm raising a film fund. It's like, no. Our first two projects are in development or greenlit or moving into production. Like, we have the rest of the 10 million raised. Like, that's where I want to be by the end of the year. So the date idea has helped a ton, and it's actually brought some good momentum to the table over the last few weeks as I'm telling people, hey, I'm closing the first 2 million by the end of the month. So see how it goes. I still don't know. But since we spoke last week, most of the seats of the producer retreat that I'm putting together have sold out. Got 2 left, and so that's coming together nicely. It was just kind of this fun side project to help some people out and have a fun time together. So, living the dream, doing the thing.
good,
How about
good.
yourself?
Uh, yeah, I'm looking at different fundraising opportunities. I really like what Graham said about the nonprofit and things like that. So I've been looking into that, and hopefully we'll be able to make some announcements here in the next little bit.
Yeah,
But in the meantime, continuing to write, and this delivering a short film that we shot, the iPhone short film. I think I mentioned earlier
yeah.
we
We did a
shot. So
whole
that's
episode on that.
what's that?
We did the whole episode on that.
Did a
Yeah,
whole episode on that shoot. Yeah, and it holds up. Like we're just going through color now and
nice.
mixing and music, and it's fun.
That's very fun. Excited to see it. Yeah, I feel like we're strategically, or maybe not strategically, by default dragging along season 2 until one of us triggers the start of season 3 with an announcement of, "Hey, I got funding. Let's get into development and pre-production and all the other things that come with that." But we're gonna save those for season 3. We're gonna keep pushing hard. Yeah, excited to see some movies. There's some good stuff out this summer.
Yep, go see F1 if you haven't seen it. It's so good.
That was amazing. Just what a film. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
everything about that, from a producer standpoint, from like $40 million in sponsorships to like how they rigged iPhone sensors into the actual cars that were on the track to get those shots. Like, just bonkers level of, oh, and it's like a James Bond film. So we're going to film in 4 continents and all over the world. It's just like, what? So
yeah.
yeah, that was probably high movie. That one and Mission Impossible were probably my 2 favorite big movies that I've seen this summer. But yeah, more to come. I got to go see Fantastic Four this week. I've heard really good things.
Oh, good. All right. Well, I'll see you there.
Sweet. All right. Sounds good, man.
Okay. Thanks, Daren.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Truly Independent. To join us on the journey, be notified, and ask us questions about today's episode, head over to 3coinpro.com/podcast and put in your name and an email address. If you're a fan of the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast app and be sure to share this. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Our intro and outro music is Election Time by Kjartan Abel.